So I was critiqued today, and I'm just answering questions here as WebTech concerning something simple. God Party schools out goth and black metal, tech, trance beats, revolution, driving good tunes, December 10th, 2020. Pietta long Colt 45 revolver eggspurt has corrected me on my lack of knowledge on the gun used by Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin loaded a live round. He lies about pulling the trigger. A revolver is easy to check. It's not difficult to check a revolver cylinder, but you don't know about the specific one. I also state that it should be altered, he didn't question this, so that it's easier to pop it apart and get the damn cylinder out. Since it's not supposed to be firing any rounds, it'd be quite advantageous to make sure that you can just pop out the cylinder because of the way it's designed. I don't like how he acts or the public statements he makes. I don't have to be a trumpet QAnon to see that. You don't have to be a trumpet QAnon to not like his public statement or how he acts. I think Baldwin's an egotistical moron. Okay. Most people who know him know that at times he's a moron, and he has shown that he is egotistical once in a while. I see things he and others potentially did wrong. Potentially did wrong. You're accusing him of deliberately loading the firearm and lying about pulling the trigger. He didn't load the damn cartridge. That's not even a stretch. That's just you accusing him of murder. Deliberate murder. That's murder, real murder, not accidental homicide. We will find out the truth. I don't know. He is most likely lying about not having pulled the trigger. How do you know he didn't load a live round in the gun? No one's accused him of it, and it's not his responsibility, and he wasn't seen loading the gun, nor was he seen with any cartridges, fake or real. No one's even tried to bring this up. You've decided he has to be guilty, and again, what I said is there's an overriding bias on one political part of the camp that has nothing to do with it. This isn't politics. This is whether or not something happened. Facts, not truth or opinion. I'm sorry, but this is going to be a key word here. I'm going to interview people in the future if I have a business, and I'm going to wait for them to use the word truth. That goes for social justice warriors that say, well, my truth, you mean your version of reality, which you're willing to lie about? That's what I equate the word with, because people like you show up in my comment section. How do you know he didn't load a live round in the gun? You're insinuating that he deliberately loaded a round in to shoot somebody or shoot something, while pointing it ostensibly at the direction of some expensive equipment at several times. You don't know. No one does. He knows, and so do the people on the set. No one has accused him of loading the goddamn cartridge, you putz. What's sad is yourself are ignorant to guns instead of experienced. Your knowledge is coming from text and secondhand sources. Or I've held the exact same gun at one time, did a review of it by using other people's pictures, and I've altered this specific gun because it's a fucking safety hazard. Even gun experts on YouTube won't acknowledge that the gun is probably at fault. It's a 1970s era reproduction firearm that wasn't regulated as heavily back then and wasn't needing to be. Half of them were bought as cap and balls and then converted over by putting a conversion cylinder in, which isn't very complicated. Which means originally it wasn't sold with the presumption that it would be used for anything more heavy than black powder. By the way, black powder can be heavy. And you can ignore me if you want. But somebody had a playlist stack of party, schools out, goth and black metal, god, trance, tech beats, or tech trance beats, revolution. Revolution has the most interesting listing archived. Drivin' good tunes is another one. December 10th, 2020 is when you started your channel. You didn't name it as a Pietta long Colt 45 revolver. You didn't bling up a bling. No one's brought up whether or not it's a conversion cylinder. No one's brought up, I did a video on this, by the way. No one's brought up whether or not the damn thing had any of the aftermarket parts put into it to get rid of these issues. As made and being from the 70s. I don't even know how old this one is, but it's supposed to be from the 70s. We're not given all the details. It's a reproduction, so it could be from any damned year. It may or may not come with the inherent problem of at one point they put out the gun with inadequate heat treating, so it would wear down the part that'd keep it from going off. Is it a double or single action? I think it's a single action, not like I know anything about this. And again, there are variations of this thing. And again, I've made them to where they were double action. You know, put the double action together to look like one. It didn't start with the same gun. Well, I did. Don't modify one of these to do the double action capability, please. But yeah, you can find this information out. Of course, I could just be blowing smoke up your ass and saying, "Dear God Putty Schools Out goth and black metal fan here, who claims to know what he's talking about, and I don't." You can look on my channel and see I have an inordinately large number of articles and videos on specifically firearms of various calibers, and I'm about to do a series on making an ultra-long Colt hybrid design that'll tolerate being legally a pistol that can load shotgun shells with rifling that won't interfere with the 410 shotgun shell, and how difficult it is to do paradox rifling. But I'm the one who's ignorant of guns, has no experience. It's all text and secondhand sources. So videos made before this incident that weren't politically biased because nobody gave a shit about the Pietta, and they didn't. It's a commonly bought one. Again, a lot of people bought it because single action might just well do it, would buy it as black powder so they wouldn't have any paperwork to do, and then just buy the conversion cylinder. Again, by the way, Brandon Herrera just came out with a video where he explained this. And he's a gun geek who thinks Alec Baldwin's totally guilty. I've also seen people do reviews since then and point out that it would never do this. And one guy did a live feed and had the damn thing do exactly what happened to Baldwin. And took it down. Because he didn't want Baldwin to be innocent. I don't like how Alec Baldwin acts or the public statements he makes. I don't have to be a Trump fan to see that. I don't like him. He's an egotistical moron. I can see things he and others did potentially wrong. I don't know. I think he's most likely lying about pulling the trigger. I think he might have loaded a round in the gun. Just saying. I think Trump went out of his way to convince everybody he was trying to lead a revolution to overthrow my government and make it to where none of us are allowed to vote him out of office. Just saying. Okay, now that we're done. I've archived your channel. You're welcome. Your playlists are entertaining to read in an improper order. You're a music fan who thinks he knows what he's talking about. Now, I'm a geek who looks this stuff up from experts and thinks I know what I'm doing instead of an eggspurter. And I'm not much better than you. But I am. Next time you come here, you have to have a video on your channel. You don't have to show your face, although I prefer it. Where you review the Pietta Long Colt 45 revolver and the specific one that was used, and all of the others. I had a video up on this and it's gone, but I reviewed that gun and all the others before and after that were related to it. I also discussed the fact that you could do the black powder conversion and come up with almost the same thing, and I'm kind of curious if it is. And again, people who were honest before this had videos up talking about this thing's flaws. You're not being honest. Next, it's not easy to check the fucking cylinder on this by just spinning it. Nor is it, you tip it up in the air and spin it and it'll empty itself. That's not for... You've never used a 45 Colt, have you? The cartridges don't always come out, and if you don't clean it regularly, they won't come out even if you don't fire them. Okay? That's why they get cartridges stuck in them. That's why you're supposed to poke it out or click it once at a time and point it in a safe direction towards a light source. Or just bang, 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 bang. That's why I like double actions. You can just tell the actors to just click it through 6 times. Nobody pointed out that this may have been a single action. Nobody pointed out anything substantive as a critique yet. They will, I hope. I deliberately left a bunch of triggers in that video. It is difficult to check certain revolver cylinders. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't care what you think of his statements, and that has nothing to do with the subject, so I'm skipping that. Why would you assume he's lying about not having pulled the trigger? The presumption here is he didn't realize he pulled the trigger, or other. Why would you imply strongly that he loaded the cartridge and deliberately pulled the trigger? And not be assumed to have a bias here that doesn't make sense. Now, if anybody's claiming I'm trying to exonerate him, no. If he's not in favor of guns and he's going to do movies, he shouldn't be allowed to touch anything that could be a real gun. And that should be part of his fucking contract, which means the armament people, the armorer, should never hand him a gun that can technically chamber jack shit. I would even recommend that he doesn't get blanks, We have high-tech methods and wizardry to paint over stuff and put a flash and a puff of smoke or a distortion in the air that looks like the jet of gas coming out of a gun. We don't need to have actual live fire anymore on an expensive movie. And if it's a cheap movie, just make sure all the guns are only able to fire a specific type of blank that can't hurt anybody. It'll work well enough. The Foleys can add the audio afterwards and sync it up perfectly. I've done that, by the way. By the way, you've never done that. You have a channel that doesn't indicate you have any expertise in this. Mine it shows that I'm at least, adequate to be able to learn the subject. But no, you're saying Wabtec is ignorant to guns, no experience or knowledge. He's getting it from text or secondhand sources. Getting knowledge from secondhand sources is what you're doing. You demonstrate no experience or a real source of data or knowledge. I have a very tiny amount of experience comparatively to a lot of people, obviously. And I cite my sources. In fact, in the video I had, it's gone now. I had a video up where I cited the sources that were complaining about Alec Baldwin. Just like when people said that a Las Vegas shooting had to be done with a specific machine gun when it wasn't. I made the video. It is the video comparing the sound from the Las Vegas shooting to every machine gun people claimed was fired. They sound nothing like it. Nobody bothered looking any of this up. Neither did you. So below in the description, below me, YouTube videos that end in 9UVA, FYCI, and XFOXA, showing a computer-generated version of hopefully some revolvers, or maybe even the specific one, being taken apart, and also practical usage of it. And I'll throw the Brandon Herrera one in there as well, I guess. Even people who say Baldwin should be chastised and fucked with acknowledge, if you wait long enough, that the gun he was operating shouldn't have been on set, period. Full stop. Unless it had all the surfaces for the sears hardened, redone, aftermarket kit to fix all the problems with it. Was it a conversion cylinder type? It should have had dummy rounds in it, or subcaliber inserts that make it to where when you hit the back, all it does is hit a shotgun primer, for instance, or just a primer, and make it to where you can't open the damn gun, to where you have to poke in through a little pinhole where the bullet is, the primer's out, and put in new primers real quickly. It just loosely holds them so it can make a noise, and it makes the noise come out, and it actually makes a jet of gas go through, and you use a constrictor in the middle of it to where it can't fire a bullet because it physically can't go through it. Hardened steel rods are welded together in a tube and pushed in and welded inside of it, usually from the side where the bullet would go, just because it doesn't show. I can think of 100 ways to make this not able to happen. Make failure impossible, as much as possible. You haven't offered anything to bring to the table here and are criticizing me. Now, why am I responding to this troll? This is a common statement I would expect to come up. So I'll make it the title of the video. But again, no, he didn't load a live round to shoot somebody on purpose and pull the trigger on purpose and lie about it. You're just trying to make this into literally a conspiracy theory because your worldview can't accept that a libtard who's against firearms was the victim of an armorer at a movie set because she didn't fucking really check the goddamn gun. That's the most likely. What was the longest period of time the gun was unattended, and who was the last person to touch it that is legally responsible for checking it? She was. Did she check it? The answer is no, because a bullet came out. There, I said it. It's her fault. It doesn't matter if she's actually really guilty of anything. She's the one who's held responsible. That's why she's filing lawsuits against everybody all over the place, and so is everybody else. Make it impossible for someone to die on set. How hard is that to fucking do? How hard is that to do with firearms? It isn't. I'm still right because you haven't critiqued me saying, make the gun unable to fire a cartridge. Give me an answer. Again, you need to put up a video on the Pietta long Colt 45 revolver that's either double or single action. I think it's single action. You might want to emphasize that. And go ahead and explain this before I do.